week's action-packed episode of One Piece, Don Quixote Rocinante goes on a desperate mission to steal the Op-Op fruit from a group of boneheaded pirates. Color me surprised, this was a pretty awesome episode of One Piece, and it was surprising for a number of reasons. One, it was action-packed. In fact, it had some really great animation and artwork that was very evident by the beginning of this week's episode, when you had Luffy who was still fighting against Bellamy and the clone of Doflamingo. I especially love the fact that he used a combination of blowing up his fists and using armament hockey to actually break free from Doflamingo's string. I really enjoyed the action at the beginning. It was very short-lived, but it was certainly appreciated. But most of this episode was all about Rocinante infiltrating this pirate base on Minion Island, that's literally what it's called, so that he can steal the Op-Op fruit. And this scene was handled really well because it finally let us realize how useful his powers are. Because before, Corazon was just seen as sort of like a goofball. He can be tripped up by just about anything. Hell, he lights himself on fire all the time. But his powers do have some use. He's actually able to infiltrate things like a frickin' ninja. In fact, he uses his sound-destroying abilities to actually just walk through and completely annihilate these guys, including their boss, this guy who goes by the name of Diaz Barrels, who apparently used to be a Marine himself, and he got decked by frickin' Corazon in this week's episode when he silenced everything, jumped out the window like a badass. It was a really thrilling sequence, but it all ends in this big cliffhanger ending where he's being shot repeatedly by all of these different pirates. Is he going to survive? Well, if you watch the preview for the next episode, you're probably going to find out. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of One Piece? This was a very nice episode, and one that just flew right by. This is one of those classic episodes which to me was so entertaining, it felt like it went by in about like 5 minutes. And there's a lot of really interesting details about this week's episode. There's a lot of tension because not only is he double-crossing the Doflamingo family, but Corazon now also has to look out for the wrath of his brother, who also has a little more doubt in him, and of course Virgo's also working for the Marines, so it's just really going to result in something really bad eventually, especially if you watch the preview for next week's episode. But it was just a really great way to build some more tension in this arc, which is already pretty crazy, because Law is practically on his deathbed. It's only a matter before he's killed, and luckily, Corazon just got the Op-Op fruit. But is he going to be able to get to him in time? We're just going to have to wait and find out. Despite that, this week's episode again just demonstrated how completely different Rocinante is from his brother. He's a complete opposite in every way, and it's just heartbreaking how he's constantly going out of his way to help out Law, especially at the beginning of the episode when Law starts to collapse and get even sicker. He's just in a state of complete panic. He almost falls over the side of the cliff, which would not be good. It would definitely turn Law into the mayor of Strugglesville. But without a doubt, my favorite scene from this week's episode was definitely getting to see Rocinante infiltrate this island and go up against these pirates, using his abilities in a number of cool ways. Like I said, he basically uses his silent fruit so that he can make it so that no one can hear him. Like, he's shooting out lights, but he's using his barrier at the same time, punching guys, knocking them out, just running behind them. That way they can't even hear his footsteps. It really makes him a very sneaky character and shows that despite the fact that his powers aren't exactly, like, super powerful, he can actually use them in some really interesting ways. I mean, he's been tricking his brother this entire time, but of course, that's now come to a head in this week's episode because Doflamingo says he wants his brother to have the Op-Op fruit because he trusts him so much. But this is also sort of like a test, because if he already has a devil fruit and he eats another one, he's gonna die. You can't have 2 devil fruits. Unless you're Blackbeard, but they haven't really explained all that yet. So overall, I think this was another great episode of One Piece. On the technical side of things, the animation and the artwork was pretty good this week, better than most of the episodes that I've seen, in particular that opening action scene with Luffy, Bellamy, and the clone of Doflamingo. The rest of the episode also had some great action, especially with Rocinante infiltrating the pirate place. That looked really good, and it ended on a really nice cliffhanger, so I cannot wait to tune in next week. This was just a really nice episode, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Check it out, One Piece fans. If you're reading the manga, if you're watching the anime, watch this episode. You might see something you like. So I thought this was a pretty stellar episode of the series. We're getting closer to the end of the backstory of Rocinante and Law. But what do you guys want to see from the rest of this backstory and the Dressrosa arc? And please tell me what you hope to see from the rest of the One Piece anime series. Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it and share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel and follow us on social media. You guys should also check out our weekly podcast show, The Powerful Nerdcast. It's pretty freaking awesome. And remember, as always, the best way to support our channel is to watch our videos, share them with your friends, and please comment on them. So thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay stay dandy, baby.